Hey guys, Stable here. Today we got a game in the Tier 5 French Premium Destroyer Aigle. I got Lou Violet on the screen here. Just a disclaimer, if you watch this in the future, the French destroyers aren't out yet at the time that I'm making this. So I haven't put a whole lot of time or effort into the build for commanders. So just keep that in mind, but that's the build I'm just happen to have loaded in. Now, I'd probably run this ship as more of a gunboat in terms of the build if I set it up with that in mind. But the Atago Commander Inspiration does drop the torp detection down to 6.31 seconds, which is the best at the tier on all my builds currently. So it is effective. It does have 18,400 damage type of torps, 77-second reload, 7-kilometer range, 61 knots in the water. Here, starting off, I'm demonstrating on the diagram the firing angles with guns. So you can see, if you're steeply angled, you get those front two guns. If you're moderately angled, you get the fourth gun in play. And then very broadside, you get the third and fifth. So to get all 5 guns, you got to be relatively broadside. And we'll see that a couple times within this game here. So that's kind of one of the drawbacks. Kind of reminds me of the Cossack. I think has the same type of a deal. Kind of not the greatest firing angles, but the guns themselves pretty solid. 5x1, 139 millimeters, 11.2 range, best at the tier, 4.8 reload, not too bad. Turret traverse, 27.7, worst at the tier, but HE damage, 2009% fire chance, second highest, just behind the Guide. 2600 AP damage, so good gun stats, good torp stats. Again, the turret layout is suspect at best, but offensively pretty strong. Speed 36 knots, middle of the pack. And by the way, here we're intentionally grounding. This isn't really a cap contesting destroyer, but I want to ground, back up quickly, then I'll be right pointing behind this island. So should the situation arise where I need to disengage, need to flee, I'll have the cover there. So, destroyers, when you're getting into caps and domination mode games, look for opportunities to kind of ground and then turn around rapidly. Usually it's a quicker deployment than trying to turn around in the open water. But anyway, we pop the smoke. We're shooting at the logger. We'll shoot at some other stuff. Offensively, like we were saying, pretty good. Maneuverability-wise, not as strong. Speed 36, kind of middle pack. Turn radius 680, second highest. Rudder shift 4.5, second highest. Detection 5.8, tied for second highest on my builds. 3.1 air detection. So those stats, again, maneuverability, concealment, not as impressive. So I'll keep that in mind. Now, kind of jumping into this game here, we got torps down for good nights now. He looks like he's just kind of sitting there. We're almost kind of shooting him. Number one, if we can get a fire on him, great. Looks like he might either have one, he might have burned his damage con, or he's just got a single fire. And if we got another one, then he might burn his damage con, and then we hit him with these torps. But we got the torps down, and he's going to kind of get, I kind of liken it like swatting a dog in the backside, it kind of gives them a little start, and they'll often take off if you're shooting at them like that. So that's what we ended up happening, and then did catch him with a couple, looks like just the one torp, I guess, but again, those torps hit pretty hard, so he was kind of lucky he only got hit with the one. Now he's pushing in here on the cap, and we're fully fine with getting off this cap. Destroyers, a major mistake a lot of destroyer players make is in domination mode, they get on these caps and then they feel like they have to stay on them. They're willing to kill themselves just to stay on the cap. And then, of course, when you die, they get the cap anyways, and now your team's down a valuable destroyer. And we're the last destroyer at this point in time, so maintaining our life is far more important than staying on the cap physically, which actually has almost next to zero in terms of importance. So always be willing to get off those caps, Don't die on them needlessly. Now that we've gotten rid of him, though, and we're kind of disengaged for a second, we're going to evaluate the situation. I'd love to get that Moss, but he's in the southeast. Now, strategically, from my standpoint, I don't like that southeast group as much as the southwest group. Number one, the one cap they have is in the southwest. They're going to be pushing from that way. That's where the bulk of their force is. And at this point in time in the match, when we're tied in terms of ships, holding on to B is the key to winning this game. Now, if we run away in terms of ship score, then that diminishes in importance. But at this point in time in the game, which is what you always want to be doing, constantly evaluating, what do we need to do to win at this moment? Holding on to B, at least slowing these guys down. That's my kind of focus. So here Nelson pops up relatively close. We're going to try and get alongside his horizontal, get as close to him as possible, get that blue ring as close to him as we safely can, but we don't want to get detected either, because once you get detected this close to a ship, they usually, if they're paying attention whatsoever, they're going to know you're launching torps, then they'll dodge them. Now again, like we mentioned earlier, these torps hit quite hard. You can see the Nelson's got, I don't know, 90%, 85% of his health or whatever. And check this salvo out, very narrow spread. We're just kind of going for the hard hitting. I'd love to dev strike Higa on this guy in this moment here, but you're going to see just what the Nelson can do with the heal. I think the Nelson has the sickest heal in the game at the moment. It's definitely top 2 if it's not the best, but I'd be pretty damn surprised if it's not the best. But anyway, we're basically going to hit him with, I think, almost all these torps, bring him down basically to 0, and unfortunately I got AP loaded here. We should probably be pepping him with HE right now. He can't really dodge those at this point in time, but you can see how close we got him there. We need someone with some big guns on our team to finish him off. We got the AP launched, didn't do anything, switched over to HE. But you can see we're not going to be able to finish him off in terms of raw damage here. And look at how fast his health bounces back. That's alright though. Once his heal's done providing health to his ship, he's going to be kind of susceptible to being burned by fires. And keep in mind, this thing has a 9% fire chance. Doesn't sound amazing, but if you think about how fast we're pumping out these shells, you can get a fair amount of fires going with this thing. So we get one on the middle section, the forward middle section, get one on the second middle section. Keep in mind all the ships have, well, battleships have 4 fire sections, or sections that can catch on fire, unless they're running the perk that reduces it to 3, in which case the middle section will burn as one big section. But we get middle 1, we get middle 2, now we're trying to get the nose, and if we get that third fire, there's no way he can survive. But even with 2 fires going, and with some nice support fire from our team, able to take him down. And that's a lot of HP potentially, you know, to remove if he keeps getting these heals off, so that's pretty good. Now here we got a tricky situation. We got the Aoba streaming at us basically full speed, hell-bent on killing us. We do have a Moss over here as well. I do like to get rid of their enemy destroyer. That would help our odds, especially if I can do it without dying. And then we have Dunkirk Nagato. Now at this point in time, it doesn't occur to me that Dunkirk might just be dead in the water. I do believe he's AFK at this point in time. But what I'm doing here, I was holding the shots until we get all the guns on the target here. That was a risky play. I was going back and forth in my mind. Should I just start shooting? We had the front 2 guns in position or not. But I decided to wait for all the guns. Now you can see here, any amount of angling, and we immediately lose 40% of the firepower. So it's a little bit tricky when you're dealing with destroyers close range here. You kind of have to basically show them full broadside to keep up with the, you know, the full damage output that you're hopefully trying to bring to bear to them. But that's going to, of course, open you up to counter fire as well. Once we've kind of determined that the Dunkirk is AFK, I could flip around, keep those torps in reserve for the Aoba. Maybe that would be the stronger play. But what I'm doing is I'm getting squeezed here, and I want to get rid of that Dunkirk. It's kind of like a releasing the pressure on this situation here, because if I can kill the Dunkirk or my team kills him, then I can go east at least 1 grid's worth before that Nagato will start threatening to spot me from the east. But the Aoba is just streaming at me extremely fast. He's actually probably gaining at me. And I'm going to keep pinging my team, shoot this guy, shoot this guy. If you see a cruiser chasing a destroyer, that needs to be a priority target, because the cruiser should be able to kick the crap out of the destroyer. Anyway, we get him there. I mean, a big deal, you know. But it does add points to your team's score. It removes the spotting threat, which is the main reason that I was interested in killing that ship. And, you know, there's various reasons. He could always pick up the control after he's done buffing his Dewey. So AFK targets or ships should not be your primary target often, but it was raised up in that situation because we were getting pressured in terms of spacing. And this is a major mistake that I see destroyer players make a lot. It's getting in between two ships like that. And once you do that, it's very hard to get out of that situation because they can kind of squeeze you and spot you. Here we're kind of forced though. Once we get spotted, we're not going to launch on the indicator because of course he's going to turn back towards us trying to pursue. So we basically launched the torps where we roughly thought he would turn in. Got the smoke down, trying to disengage. I'm going to try and initially zoom off to the east, use that space that we bought by killing the Dunkirk. But this turn maneuver combined with the big turn radius that we were talking about slows us way down. We're not going to get out of here. We're not going to have enough room to get undetected, even if this worked out perfectly. Plus we're getting plane spotted once we shot there. So at this point in time, I'm going to do one more HE salvo. Then we switch to AP. I'm like, all right, it's on like Don Juan. Let's do this. And this is the part of this ship that kind of surprised me until I started playing around with it a little bit. This AP against broadside cruisers absolutely shreds them. Now, close range, they're in serious trouble. But even at longer, kind of medium long ranges, I've had some fair amount of success with these cruisers. And you can see that ship, we just shredded him to bits. He was not expecting that. And, once I saw that kind of happen more than, 2 or 3 times, I was like, okay, this thing, it's got better guns than I was initially expecting them to be. I don't know if the penetration on the AP rounds for these French destroyers is really good or what the deal is. Haven't had a whole lot of time to research the French destroyer line yet. And again, we'll get them sooner or later, but when they'll be, nobody knows, except for Wargaming themselves. So now typically I'd want to be avoiding this plane here, but I'm actually intentionally sailing under it just to test out the AA. The Nagato, though, he's a fairly large distance away. He'll take the shot and shoot at me. So a very good job of him for shooting at destroyers. Even at that distance, got one shell in there. But, so I mean, if I'm trying to get on A or if I'm just trying to ride out the clock, regardless, I don't want to get spotted by that plane. But we don't have AA stats in the game right now. We won't have them in the game unless they add carriers in, most likely. They had AA stats in the game. They took them out because it was basically a waste of space. But until then, all you can really do is sail under those planes intentionally. If you can shoot them down fairly rapidly, then with that ship, it's a decent play to intentionally kill those planes because, of course, that'll free up more avenues that the enemy could potentially spot you. But, of course, you kind of have to test it out ship by ship. Ships like the Kid, for instance, will blast a plane down in a half a second, whereas one like the Biscuit basically can't shoot down a plane. So you kind of have to know, and you kind of have to go on feel. Anyway, that's pretty much going to do it for this one. Aigle, overall, it's kind of growing on me. I didn't like it initially right out of the gate, but, playing around 10 games or so now, I'm starting to like it. Just have a willingness to let the guns rip if you can, and that's basically how I think you should run it. That's going to do it for that one, guys. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, please hit the thumbs up. New to the channel, consider subscribing. There's always more World of Warships coming all the time. Questions, comments, leave them below. I'd love to hear from you guys, and we'll see y'all later. All right, peace.